Hey friends, welcome to Living in His Purpose podcast. Now, before we get started into today's episode, I want to take a minute and connect this conversation to the series that we've been in. In case you've been on vacation like I have, you can't remember where we're at. Over the last several episodes, we've been talking about identity through the lens of our spirit and our soul, and we've talked about our thoughts, our beliefs, the stories that we tell ourselves, the way that our mindset shapes how we live. But there's another piece of identity that we don't talk about very often in Christian spaces. And that is our physical body. Because whether we realize it or not, our relationship with our body affects how we think, how we feel, how we move through the world, and sometimes even how we see ourselves spiritually. The body is where our spirit and our soul actually live out our calling. And yet, for many of us, our relationship with our body is extremely complicated. Like, if you talk to any woman, every woman has a body image story. Every single one. Haven't met one yet that doesn't. So over the next couple of episodes, we're going to wrap up our identity series, but I want to talk about identity and the physical body. This episode is going to be a little different. This one is extremely personal. I don't like just sitting here telling you all about me, but what I have found is when people talk about their journey, it's very relatable. It's easy to apply what's going on in your life, and it's nice to compare a little bit about where other people are. Now, when people talk about their body journey, the story usually goes something like this. I used to be a size 20, and now I'm a size 4. Okay, that's not my story. I've never been the dramatic before and after picture. And honestly, I don't think I want to be. But I do have a story about my relationship with food and my body and my weight and my identity. And the reason I want to share it is because I believe there is power in hearing someone say, you are not crazy for the way that you feel about your body. And also, there might be another way to think about this. And so today, I'm going to share my story. Not as a prescription for what you should do, but as an invitation to push back a little bit on some of the things our culture calls healthy. Now, one of my earliest memories about food is my love for sugar, and I mean real sugar. So when I was little, probably third or fourth grade, maybe fifth grade, I was a latchkey kid, okay? And if you grew up in the 80s, you know exactly what that is. I'd come home from school, I'd grab the big spoon in the drawer, I'd open that sugar bowl, and I would just eat raw sugar, spoon after spoon, straight sugar. And looking back now, I know exactly what that was. I was trying to feel better. And even as a child, I think I struggled with feeling low, maybe even a little depressed, maybe just wanting to feel something calm inside. And sugar did that for me. It gave me a moment of comfort. And I think that's important to say out loud because sometimes we talk about food like it's purely physical, but food is emotional, food is relational, food is comfort. When I was a teenager, my body image became very complicated, and I know a lot of women can relate to this. I was tall. I was pretty tall for my age. By my sophomore year of high school, I was already 5'8", and the girls that everyone thought were beautiful were tiny and petite, just the little cheerleader type. And I remember my dad saying to me one time, "You'll never be like those smaller girls." And that stuck with me. Like I can still remember where he was, where I was standing, and what he was saying. We were taking a family picture and I was complaining about my arms. And that's what he said to me. And then the crazy part is about this same time. Okay, I'm 5'8". I weighed 115 pounds. I was basically a beanpole. And around that same time, I remember my mom saying, "Are you anorexic? Because you look really thin." So here I am, too big in one conversation, too small in another. And I think that's where my relationship with my body really began to fracture because I never felt like my body was right. And I'm just going to throw this in off script because I think this is extremely important. People who go through trauma as a little child, I think even struggle with this more because your body was physically violated. It creates this whole sense of unsureness about the world. And then you start having these comments being thrown in and becoming a teenager and life in itself. And it just really becomes very, very convoluted. Okay, back to my story. When I was 17, I became pregnant and I was in my senior year of high school. And I remember very clearly One moment, for some weird reason, I was running down the hallway in the school, and this might be a little TMI, but if you know, you know. I was running down the hall, and suddenly I felt my chest bounce. And it startled me because it never happened before. And that was the first time I became aware that my body was actually changing being pregnant. And if we're being honest, pregnancy changes your body in ways that never fully go back. After my daughter was born, things were really difficult. I had an emergency C-section. Here I am 17. I was in the hospital for 10 days. My daughter was in another hospital in the ICU. And during that time, a friend came to visit me, and she was telling me about another girl who happened to get pregnant in high school. It was kind of an epidemic, I guess, that year. I don't know. But she was telling me how she had the baby and was already home, had slipped back into her size 4 jeans. And I remember going home after the hospital and squeezing myself into the jeans I had been wearing before pregnancy, a size 7. And I want to mind you, I was a fresh C-section. My incision still intact, right? And they were tight. And I remember feeling disappointed. And now looking back, I think, oh my gosh, isn't it amazing how a single comment can shape the way that we feel about our bodies for years? Okay, so the 80s happened, right? SnackWells, low fat everything. Fat is bad. Fat causes heart attacks. Fat makes you fat. So everyone cut fat and ate carbs and did aerobics every day. And then later, carbs became the enemy. Now fat was good. Protein was good. Keto was good. And if you weren't doing high intensity workouts or lifting weights, people acted like you weren't serious about your health. And through all of these decades, the message stayed the same. Fix your body. Make it smaller. Make it look right, would you? We're offended if you don't. And one of the ideas that has really helped me rethink this whole conversation is something I've heard a few people say recently. Recently, I've come across some influencers and some things that are being said that I think everyone needs to hear. The idea that our bodies are meant to be instruments, not ornaments. And that means that our bodies weren't designed primarily to be something other people look at and evaluate. They were designed to help us live the life that God called us to live. Our bodies carry us. They allow us to move, serve, work, love people, show up in our calling. And when I thinking about my body that way, it began to change how I treated it. Now, in 2020, and I think I've talked about this before, I'm pretty sure I have, but this is the context. This is where things changed. Everything changed. I was diagnosed with adrenal fatigue, and one of the first questions that my doctor asked was, when you work out, do you feel energized afterwards? And I said, no, I want to take a nap. And she said something I did not expect to ever hear from a doctor's mouth. Stop working out. Because at that point, my body had been under chronic stress for so long that even exercise was pushing it further into stress. And that moment really shook me. I mean, several days I laid around and I thought, what is the world coming to? Everyone says you need to work out. This is the healthy way. This is supposed to make you live longer, give you more energy. And that's not what I was feeling. And I'm being told the opposite. So I started learning about stress. I started learning about cortisol, stress hormones, how the body stores fat, why it stores fat. And suddenly things started to make. There were times in my life where I was eating less and exercising more. And, everyone says eat less, work out more, you'll lose weight. I wasn't losing weight. But the missing piece, which I feel like we are not discussing to the level that we need to discuss. And when I have conversations with people and they mention their body and how they're overweight and they need to lose weight, blah, blah, blah. I'm first to tell them this. It's stress. What's the stress look like in your life? Chronic stress tells the body to hold on to energy. There's danger here. We might need this. We need to hold that fat, protect itself. And honestly, that realization that my body was trying to help me, not hurt me, was incredibly freeing. And I want you to hear this. This is where I think Christians need to ask a different question than the culture is asking. The culture asks, how do I control my body? But I think the better question is, how do I steward the body that God gave me? Control says I have to force my body into a certain shape. Hell or high water. 7 days at the gym, 2 hours a day. I'm going to get this done. But stewardship, do you hear that tension? Like, that just makes me stressed, even just saying that. The thought of doing that is just like not for me. But stewardship says something a little bit more caring, a little bit more something I would hear Jesus say. I need to care for my body so it can do what God has created it to do. And those are two very different mindsets. Now, fast forward today, we've gone from diet culture to surgical culture, bariatric surgeries, weight loss injections. And I want to be careful here because I know there may be some medical cases where these tools are necessary. But what concerns me is how quickly they are now being offered to people who are not medically extreme. And I find myself asking the question, why are we so desperate to make our bodies? Over the last couple of years, I have done a lot of mindset work personally, and that work has been incredibly helpful emotionally, spiritually. I feel so much more resilient. I'm stronger in my faith, and that has been extremely important to me. And now I'm starting to feel like maybe it's time to focus a little more on physical strength, but not because I want to be smaller, but because I'm getting older. And I'm telling you this because I want to be honest. I don't want you to give up. If your goal is to be stronger so that your body moves better, by all means, go through your physical regimen. Listen to what your doctors are saying. Just think about what you're doing. And as a rebel myself, what I'm doing here is I'm pausing. And before I get on this bandwagon and I say, oh, I need to go do this, I'm thinking about my why. And so some things that are coming up for me. So here I am, 53, and I'm thinking about things like I'm losing muscle mass every year. I need my bones to be stronger. My muscle strength matters. Being able to move well now matters. But the key for me is this. This is what I'm thinking. Physical strength cannot be my main focus. It has to support my calling. It cannot replace it. Okay. So now something else that I've been learning recently is this concept of body neutrality. Very different concept here, because sometimes we hear the message that we should love our bodies at all times. And I kind of get stuck there. Like you feel like you have to hate it and put it in submission, or you have to love it all the time and make it an idol. But let's get real. The truth is, some days we don't like our bodies. Some days we look in the mirror and we just struggle. This is where I am sometimes. But body neutrality says we don't have to feel amazing about our bodies every day. But we can still respect them and care for them, even on the days when we don't feel great about how we look. If you've gone through hard times, your main focus has just been, or a way to help think this, how wonderful that your body carried you this far, that your body has brought you through hard. But if I'm being honest, and why not? Here I am. I might even tell you how much I weigh. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. There's still tension because when you have body identity struggles, the mental gymnastics never completely stop. There are still days when I look in the mirror or I see a picture and I think, oh my gosh, how did I get this big? Why can't I be smaller? And I really believe, because the emotions that are connected with those thoughts are so negative. I believe that those thoughts are often spiritual attacks because the enemy loves when we focus on our appearance instead of our calling. Now, what I want people to hear, what I really want people to hear in this episode is this. If the way that you are trying to be healthy is stressing you out, if it's occupying 75% or greater of your mind space, that's all you think about all day, it might not actually be healthy for you. If counting every step, every calorie, every bite of food is consuming your mind, that might not be the freedom that God has intended for your life. And maybe instead of obsessing over what we look like, we should be asking deeper questions. What is chronic stress doing to our bodies? What is happening at the cellular level? And how does our thinking affect our health? And I also want to say something here that I'm really grateful for. Now that we're trying to figure out a new way to think, I'm really grateful for the voices that I've been running across on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok who are out there and are pushing back against this idea that our bodies are enemies that we have to conquer. People who are saying your body is not the problem. Your body deserves love and respect. It's okay if your body is larger. Love the body that God gave you. And I'm really grateful for those voices because for a long time, the only message many of us heard was you need to fix it. You need to shrink it. You need to control it. If you're overweight, you are out of control. There might be some other things going on. I'm just saying with the research and the things that I've been looking at, there's a whole lot more than calories in, calories out, okay? But I think we're starting to hear something. Personally, I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I'm still figuring this out. But one thing I know for sure is this. Our bodies are not projects to constantly fix. They are vessels that God gave us to live the life that He called us to live. And maybe the first step toward real health is learning to make peace with the body that we already have. So I want to ask you some questions. I want you to think about what's rolling around in your little noggin, okay? I want to ask you something to think about this week. What has your relationship with your body actually been like over the last several years? Not what the scale says, but the story behind it. What's that story? And the second question is this. Is the way that you're trying to be healthy actually bringing peace into your life? Or is it bringing you more stress? Because if the pursuit of health is constantly creating anxiety, shame, or obsession, we might need to rethink our approach. Maybe. Just think about it. And if you're a rebel like me, it might take a few times thinking about it. What kind of stress is this roller coaster that you're on creating? And what would it feel like to let it go? And then the third question is this. I want you to sit with this. If your body never changed from where it is today, would your identity still be secure in Christ? Because that's really the heart of this whole conversations. Our bodies change, our sizes change, our seasons change. And as someone in perimenopause, which honestly we're all in perimenopause, we're just further along than others, right? Things happen, hormones happen, life happens, our bodies change, the seasons in our life change. Sometimes we can focus on the strength of our bodies and making it the healthiest that it can be. We have the extra brain space for that. Sometimes we're just trying to get out of bed, and that's okay. But our identity in Christ never changes. And if you're sitting with that question and you're realizing that your relationship with your body has been shaped by years of pressure, years of comparison, or shame, I want you to know you are not alone. So many of us have been carrying these thoughts for decades without ever realizing how deeply they shape the way that we see ourselves. And I want you to know something important. This is rarely just a body issue. Most of the time, it's an identity and a mindset issue. It's about the stories that we've believed for years about who we are, what we should look like, what it means to be valuable. And learning how to untangle those stories is exactly the kind of work I love helping women do. I work with Christian women who want to grow more confident in who they are in Christ, who want to renew their thinking, step more fully into the life and calling that God has placed on their hearts. And that's why I created my Identity Reset coaching package to help women slow down, renew their minds, rebuild their thinking around truth instead of pressure. And if that's something that you've been needing, this program is available at this current pricing through the end of March before I make some changes to it. But more than anything, if this conversation has stirred up something in you, I just want you to know you do not have to untangle it all alone. Because when your identity becomes steady in Christ, your body no longer has to carry the weight of defining your worth. You are so loved, sisters, so loved, just the way you are, even if you're not that size 7 anymore, I promise. I hope this has helped. I would love to hear your stories. I would love some feedback. I need feedback, ladies. I need feedback. I need to hear from you. You are who I'm designing this for, who I'm talking to, and I want to hear how this has impacted you. I want to hear your stories. If you think there's someone else in your life that needs to hear this, please share it. If you have a place where you can leave a review, leave a review. This helps more people see and hear this information. We need to know our identities in Christ. We need to know that we are more than just our bodies. We are soul and spirit, and we have such glorious, glorious things that God has designed and gotten us ready for. Let's not be preoccupied with this physical world. Let's keep our eyes towards heaven. I love you.